Okay, hi guys. How are you? Thanks for bearing with us. Look forward to chatting with you guys. We're going to give it just a second so we get more people on. Welcome Elizabeth and Amber and Michelle and Christina. Lots of folks are coming on. Thank you guys. While we're waiting just a second, I'll just intro myself. I'm not Paige. It's hard to fill in her footsteps, but I'm Nicole. I'm also on the marketing side. I am part of my job at OCEARCH is to help bring information like this to you guys and share what we're doing with all of you. So it's such a pleasure to be here with you guys. And I would love to introduce Dr. Bob Huger as well as Captain Brett McBride. If you guys want to intro yourselves really quick for the team.
Hi, everybody. I'm Bob Huter, and I am Chief Scientist of OCEARCH, and have been working with Chris and the gang since 2011, and happy to be here today. Brett?
Brett McBride. I'm a captain and fishing master of the vessel, and I've been working with Chris for 20 plus years, 23 years or something like that, I think. And I'm happy to be here to answer any questions you have today.
Yeah, you're actually on the ship, right? Coming to us from the helm. It's pretty cool. So if you guys didn't know that,
he's just arrived. Yep.
Yeah, my background
we drive from.
is virtual. I wish,
yeah,
I wish we had that right now, but we will soon.
And then
he's not on the ship. Hey, Bob, why don't you come on up?
I'm doing Monday. Be there soon. Can't wait.
And we were trying to we had some technical difficulties getting Chris on, but it looks like it worked out. So Chris, welcome. He is our founder and expedition leader. And this crew here, Brett, Bob, and Chris have been working together for years and years. And thank you guys for tuning in the last few weeks. We've been really gearing up towards our expedition, our 45th expedition, which is just incredible. So if you've been following us along, we've been trying to unveil information that led us to this 45th expedition. And today we want to talk about the global white shark puzzle. So, you know, the first question is, well, what the heck is the global white shark puzzle? And how many, you know, I think it has to do with populations, right? So if you guys could tell us a little bit about that. I don't know, Bob, if you want to take that one maybe for us and share that with everyone.
I'll kick us off, and then I can pass it to Chris and Brett. The white shark is, as you all know, is a prominent top predator in the oceans. It's been swimming the oceans for tens of millions of years. And when we look at the distribution of the white shark around the planet, it's found in 8 or possibly 9 different populations, separate populations in various areas of the world, primarily from the cool temperate zone into the subtropics, and very well-known places like South Africa, Australia, in the Eastern Pacific. OCEARCH, the guys, Chris and Brett, worked in the Eastern Pacific, worked in many of these places, South Africa and so on, working on the populations there. We're currently focused, though, in this expedition, in this series of studies, on the Western North Atlantic population, which right here off our own U.S. East Coast has been understudied. So that's the way the white shark sort of sorts itself out as different populations on a genetic level. And Chris, I don't know if you want to add to that and talk about why we're focused on this puzzle right now, what we hope to do in the future.
Yeah, I think when you really step back and, you know, how did we get here? You know, back in the early mid 2005, 6, 7, 8 range, the scientists needed help with these white sharks because they couldn't have safe access to them to leverage technology to solve the puzzle of their life, right? So there's 9 white shark populations around the world. And at the time, we didn't have a data set to manage our white sharks back in any of those systems. In some of the regions around the world, there's been work done for decades, and they got pieces of the puzzle and a good portion of the puzzle. Some of these populations, there is no data on these animals. In all of them, there lacked leverageable data for management and not enough information to be able to help manage them back, help the nursery, help the mating areas, understand their full range, and be able to actually implement policy to return white sharks from near the brink of extinction down to populations in the single-digit percentiles in some parts of the world. So the scientists were explaining this has a terrible effect. It trickles down the food chain, and then ultimately we end up with a lack of abundance and not enough life to support the future. And so we were like, okay, well, they asked if we could get one in the lift. I called Brett. I said, Brett, do you think you can get one of these animals in the lift? He said yes. And then we began the journey back in 2007. And the simple goal at that time was to describe the full life history of a white shark population so that it could be managed, leverageable data for management. And, we're just wrapping up fully describing the first population in the world that will have had that completed here off the Western North Atlantic. And there's 8 other populations to go. And the thought in the beginning was, if we could build an enterprise and help the people who already have pieces of the puzzle in various areas of the world by giving them more capacity to take their level beyond where it can go now, and then also pioneer the work in the populations where nothing was really known. If we could deliver those descriptions of the white shark's life history in each of those regions, we could make a big step forward in ensuring the abundance of all of those regions for the future for kids. And that's really the white sharks thing, right? We're trying to finish proving it in one population. It's never been done. We're right there, standing at the doorstep of completion. And there's 8 others to go. But if over our days here, we could describe as many of those life history puzzles around the world, or all of them, it would be a real impactful thing to do for the future. And that's kind of how the populations and what we do and why white sharks all combines.
And I don't know who wants to take this one, maybe Brett or Chris. You mentioned that we've been, part of these different populations and grabbing data from different pieces of the puzzles around the globe. Where have we been across these 45 expeditions? We're about to embark on our 45th. The other 44, where in the globe are some of these puzzles? Where have we been across the globe?
Go ahead, Lee. So I'll start, and then I can throw it to Brett. So Brett and our journey on the water, even with OCEARCH, was started where we had been for a number of years before, and that was started off in California and Mexico and Central America, where we started our work back 2007 to 2010, where we really pioneered our work with white sharks, proving it was, possible to do the work we do. And then, we were working off California, tagging baby white sharks around 2009, and we did Guadalupe and the Farallones all between 2007 and 2010. Then we slid down through Central America and into South America, down into Ecuador and Chile. And that's just the Pacific-based stuff, in both the North Pacific and the South Pacific. And then, of course, we've been around fully circumnavigated, or not quite fully, but mostly circumnavigated Australia between like 14 and 15, in that area, 13, 14. We were in South Africa in 2012, tagging, I think, approximately 40 white sharks back then in 2012. And then, of course, you got the work in Brazil and Fernando de Noronha, along with everything we've done off the East Coast and Atlantic Canada. So we've been around the world. And that's one of the reasons why we're effective. When you get a guy like Brett McBride, and he's able to work on multiple white shark populations around the world and then see the ocean and see it the way he sees it and understand what's working, what doesn't work, where works, where does not work, and then integrating that in with all our restrictions and weather and the lift, he's, had an opportunity to see things and really know of his skill set has had. And so that really helps us when we move into new parts of the world and know what white sharks are. It's been very powerful having the same team on the same vessel, working all of those things and constantly transferring that knowledge to every new region we move to.
Yep, those. Just kind of running back through a little memory lane there. As you're describing where we've been. You know, what was interesting is the fact that we started at Guadalupe Island. That's where the sharks are the biggest on average. You know, there's a lot of really big mature sharks there. They're in a time phase of their life that it's important. I mean, that if you're successful, you can learn a lot. If you're, with what you get there, the water's the deepest there. It's the cleanest there. It tested us on a bunch of levels right away as far as, okay, what's going to be like to get a big one. And then we were successful. Then seeing how much we learned from those tracks. And then by the time you get down and look at a different population, like when we got down to South Africa, and it's like, okay, well, this is definitely not anything like fishing Guadalupe Island. I mean, you got the water depths are completely different. The size of the animals is varying, and the environment that they're living in is changing from spot to spot. So it was a whole nother, like, okay, well, it looks very different. Same animal, different looking everything, as far as just how to go about catching them, and then what you're going to learn from each one, because they're different phases of life and different times of their actual migration annually too, or biannually. And then you start comparing that by the time we get back up to here, because this is a difficult puzzle to solve up here, because it's just the dynamics of the whole coast. It's just a big open basin. You got the old Gulf Stream. You got to expand. Now you're finding animals above Canada, as well as finding the nursery down off of Long Island and all that, and then just trying to figure out, okay, now how do you target these animals when they're in their offshore phase of their migration, and try to fit all those things together. So this to me, it's like, it was great that we had those successes at those other places in order to get this one done, because I think had this been the very first one, it would have been more I don't know, frustrating, as far as even to figure out what to do, and what we're actually learning. So, but we're getting to the end of this one, so it's got to go out and have a couple good expeditions. And
so Brett, you just mentioned, we're getting towards the end of this Western North Atlantic white shark puzzle. It is one of the 9. And, maybe just share, whoever wants to take this one, maybe Bob, on, how many sharks have we studied so far in this region, and what is our real goal as we move to the 45th expedition?
Yeah, so, we really began looking for sharks in the Western North Atlantic around 2012. Had some pilot studies up in a more, this sort of the traditional well-known area that white sharks were found, and that's off of Cape Cod. And got a few tags out, the famous Mary Lee being one of them. And as Brett just explained, because of the knowledge and experience of the OCEARCH organization and crew, we knew that if we got a few tags out and then tracked those animals, that they would lead us to the other important parts of their range. And meanwhile, the ship went to South Africa to do some work and then came back, and we really started digging in around 2016 or so. And one of the places that we went was North Florida in the wintertime, and that's where we got the famous Lydia. Famous for me especially, because that was my first one on the ship. It's been I have to say, scientifically, it's been a very fulfilling journey to work with Brett and Chris to kind of put all these pieces together and use the sharks to show us where things are happening. As Brett said, the crew went off of Long Island, where this reputed nursery area was for the young, but everybody said you couldn't catch the young there. Brett immediately caught them, knew how to get them, immediately caught them. We got 20 tags out on the young. And then another major part of the story was we saw our sharks of a variety of sizes going to Canada in the summertime. And Canada was supposed to be, this is just a fringe area. That's not important. Well, we found now that it's very important, and about half of the population goes to Canada in the summertime. And once again, when we were up there and Brett started to look over the area, he found the animals right away when the locals said, no, there's not that many white sharks here. You'll never find them. So it's been, this is something that the scientists could never have pulled off. And that's why this collaboration is so successful, because the combination of Brett's knowledge, the waterman's knowledge with our scientific knowledge has been able to take us to where we are today, which is 88% completed. We have a goal of 100 animals, and that sounds like just a number we pulled out of the air, but actually it's based on a certain number of animals per life stage and per sex to fulfill the needs of all the 24, 25 different projects that we have going that every animal serves. Every one of these animals has been tagged and released in great condition and gone on to live their lives. And so we're coming to the last few miles here, and we've got this expedition coming up, number 45, and perhaps 2 more, and that will finally finish out this great study of the Western North Atlantic population.
That's great. But, and, it sounds like, our goal is to get a certain number of animals tagged so we have really defensible data and to really round out all those projects together. And maybe we'll do it in our 45th expedition. Maybe it'll take the next couple, but, the team is definitely determined to finish this puzzle here in the Western North Atlantic. So we have the baseline for years to come.
And I think what makes it difficult, it sounds like we're at 88 and we need to get to 100, but it's not just 12 more white sharks they want of any kind of white shark, right? We're getting down to where they know so much about the white shark's life because we've moved across most of the range of the animal, and the science team has been able to sample them. So now we're down to this. We're really focused on the last piece and creating good defensible science around where and when is the mating taking place. So the samples are the sharks that the scientists want. It's not just any white shark. They want mature animals from a specific region during a specific time of year. And if you go into there and you catch subadults or juveniles, that doesn't really help you close the gap on your last 12. They're really looking for mature animals because we're focusing on mating, which you have to be a mature animal to do. So it makes these last handful of sharks much more difficult to actually get into the hands of the scientists because we're down to the last few questions, right? They've already answered so many. They don't need these other type of sharks so much. So it is a new area at a new time of year. So any shark can kind of help round out the juvenile and subadult and what their body physiology looks like, or maybe their diet and things. But we've got most of that handled. We're zeroing in on just mature animals during this particular time of year off the southeastern United States. And so that makes it tough. So you might see it catching animals that are subadults or juvenile animals, and it's great. And it will help fill out some of the things for some of the other studies. But it doesn't really help us close the gap too much on the final goal so that the scientists actually can complete every project we started.
Yeah. Well, I think 2 important points that you mentioned were, the time of year and also the location. Obviously the profile animal we're really targeting in on, but the time of year and location. So we are approaching our next expedition, number 45, is coming up in a matter of days. We start on the 17th of April. Can one of you share where we're going to actually be and why we're going to be in that area?
I can tell you this, I haven't talked to Bob or Brett about it, but I don't know if you woke up this morning or yesterday late and you looked at the tracker and you saw Ironbound and Maple have made their move out of the Gulf of Mexico, and they're charging up into the Carolinas right to get there right when we're going to get there. It's, time of year and watching the tracks, it's all interrelated, right? We see this gathering of a large percentage of the animals off the Carolinas as they stack up against that warm cold water break at Hatteras prior to moving northbound once it's warm enough up above. We're trying to get into that area where those sharks are bottled up just before they push through and go north. It's really cold north of Hatteras right now, so they're still kind of stuck there. And as they all move north, like Ironbound and Maple are right now, they all kind of get up in there and get stuck up in there. And we want to get in there and see what's going on and see if we can't get the scientists the right type of animals to answer some questions. So that's kind of why, where, and when. And it's exciting when you're watching the tracker and you're coming to an area and you see hoping what's shaping's up, why you planned it that way. I remember in years past, I've been on the boat with Brett, and we've been working down maybe like in January or February off of Northeast Florida, and Brett and Bob are there, and we're looking at the tracker, and we're like, all these sharks are piled up in the Carolinas. We're a couple days south of there, and then the weather's so hard to get on them there, so it doesn't give you a lot of windows to actually go looking there. But at this point, we've realized that, this is an ancient puzzle, hundreds of millions year old ancient secret of the ocean that she has been holding on to since the beginning of the white shark. And I think it was probably naive to think that she was going to give up the last of this secret very easily. We're going to have to go to a place where the weather is terrible and there's very few opportunities to get the few sharks we need to finish, because if it were easy, it would have been done already. And that's just the way she's shaping it up. Like, okay, boys, are you really committed to figuring this out? If you are, come dance with me, where the dance is changing every 5 minutes. And if you can endure that, maybe I'll decide to give it up to you. And I think that's what we're
We've had a ton of
Ironbound is one of my favorite of all the sharks we've bagged. A big, just a tough looking male. So I placed a call to him this morning and said, Ironbound, can you meet us up there off the Carolinas? Are you going to mate up there? And he said, yeah. So meet me there, and then I'll show you where all this is. So I wish it worked that way. But Brett, tell us about the challenge it's going to be, because all the evidence that we have is that mating is not close to the beach. If it was, this would have been observed a long time ago. So it's probably going to be offshore. We don't know how far, though, on the shelf or even further out. Brett, tell us how you meet that challenge.
Yeah, it's not surprising or by accident that these last sharks are going to be the hardest ones. It's almost like you're playing a board game, and it's like, okay, how do we get these final park place and the boardwalk or whatever? But the challenge is because, like, you go to some places and like, oh, you have islands to hide behind, and you can fish in more weather conditions. There might be more sharks in one specific area. When you're doing the nursery, it was like, okay, we got to get 20 out of this area, but you got a lot of protection from the beach. If you're fishing right on the beach in places, you can, at least during some weather patterns, you are protected from one direction because you're so close to shore. It makes sense that those parts of the puzzle are going to get filled out first, and then the harder ones, the ones that have been difficult all along, are going to remain just as difficult. Our biggest hurdle that we have in this part of the coast is the fact that there are no places to hide from weather. If the weather is going to come and blow up, it blows up everywhere, and it's not like you can just make a decision to go around a corner or a shoal and get in protected waters, especially for an operation like ours where we need to get in conditions that are conducive to use the lift. It's got to be pretty nice weather for us to put that lift over. So we're already struggling with that wherever we go. And then in this case, we want to actually target sharks that are probably a little further offshore. My gut feeling would tell me that they're probably, if we were able to spend a little more time out closer to the inside edge of the to the Gulf Stream and find some counter current upwellings and stuff like that, and had any length of time that we had 4 or 5 day weather windows, that we'd start having success. It's just hard to get that offshore, get all set up for a half-day weather window, and then have to move all the way back inshore because there's just no place to hide. So it's always been like that for us here. It's just tough to work around the weather, and then just especially when you're targeting specific large mature animals. The whole thing just it's going to be these last, like, we're only down to a dozen of them, but they're going to be some of the toughest dozen that we've ever had to get. We just need to get a little luck on our side and have some weather. And I've had a lot of interviews where I've talked to people, and they're like, what's your favorite shark? And don't you want to always catch the biggest shark? And it's like, because I've answered a lot of times, like the shark that to me, success has always been whatever Bob's asking for. Whatever the piece to the puzzle is that we need is what I'm really after, and I can really feel that way most of the time because I've spent so much of my life have like this bucket list kind of mentality. But part of you always wants to catch a big shark or a big fish of any kind as a fisherman. So it just so happens to be that now we're getting down to that part of the puzzle we're trying to solve. That these are the big ones that we need. I am going out there hoping big bait, big fish, big, to play the big shark game, and hopefully
that's what we're targeting. I mean, that's how we finish. That is an interesting way to come, to see it from your perspective like that. We've never really chased the big one, but and here we are in a situation where the scientists are asking us to chase the big one. That's very interesting.
Yeah.
And I think we'd love to make sure you guys get some questions answered. So if you have some questions for the team, if you can go ahead and add some in now. If we don't get to all of your questions now on the live, we're going to have our team going into social and trying to answer all of your questions. So please put them in there. We would love to, we love talking to you guys. You guys can all kind of add in your thoughts here, but the whole reason we're doing this is for you guys. It's for, all of our kids and all of their kids and all of your future. And so, we love answering questions. So
Nick, I can answer a few right now. I'm in the one question is, how long do the expeditions last on average? Usually about 3.5 weeks. It just depends on the time of year and everyone's schedule, that sort of things. We got people here from PEI, a lot of people from up in Canada. Yeah, you see all sizes there at PEI. It's not just the bigger, older animals. We see animals as young as 4 years old up there, Mike. So it's a part of their full range of the white shark over their entirety of their lives. But of course, I'm sure you see big animals in there with those bluefin feeding and so forth. But that's a special spot you're in there. It's a beautiful place. Like a nice shout out to the people from OBX. Welcome us there in Maryland. We thank you for checking your sharks every day with your daughter. That's awesome. It's just so great. Like when I see these comments from all these people all over the world, I never would have dreamed 40 expeditions ago or 45 expeditions ago this would be what's going on at OCEARCH. It really is everyone's. It's really a beautiful thing. Look forward to answering more questions when we can.
Yeah, Bob, we had a note that everybody wants us to have backgrounds like yours, so you win. Let's see here if I can find some more questions for you guys. Let's see. There's several of you guys saying, hey, Elizabeth is asking about internships and Jackie Lynn wants to volunteer. Thank you guys. I mean, gosh, if we could have all of you on the ship, we would totally do that. We try to bring out, folks that are working with our institutions through internships or through those schools system. But really our best way to get you guys out on the ship is virtually. So definitely follow along with us during expedition when we launch next week. Whenever we can, we do try to go live when we have a shark on the lift. So we will try to show you live in real time what's going on, unedited. That is really, we try our best to get you guys included in every way possible.
I got a couple other good questions here. Cynthia asked, wondering where Nagumi is. We're all feeling that way, Cynthia. Something happened to her tags. Her pop-off tag popped off early out in the middle of the Atlantic when she was heading out, we believe, to gestate. And then we got a weird ping from her spot tag up around the Flemish Cap, to the east of Newfoundland. And then we haven't heard from her. We feel like we've had some sort of tag failure. We believe the animal is okay. Yeah. Someone asked, how long did it take to get to 88 of the 100 sharks? I think that represents somewhere around 6 to 7 years of field work. It was separated into 2 separate groups. But if you look at coming into a puzzle where we knew very little, there was almost nothing known in the Western North Atlantic when we started in 12. We got the first 5 tags out, and then we went around the world and did some work, and we came back around 16 or 17. And we watched those first animals, and then we were able to leverage that to catch the remaining sharks. So I really feel like we really got started around 16, and here we are in early 23. So that's how long it's taken to get those animals. No one's been injured. by a shark 365. Our biggest challenges are heavy equipment and foul weather. I don't know if you want to do any other ones, Nicole. I was just grabbing.
Yeah, I had a couple folks kind of asking after this expedition, you know, what's the next expedition, and after this puzzle, maybe what's next once we sort of get this, you know, baseline in this puzzle in the Western North Atlantic.
Yeah, so yeah, Jacksonville. Someone asked about Jacksonville. Jacksonville is the Jacksonville University is the academic home of OCEARCH, and will be the Mayport, which is in Jacksonville, is becoming the world headquarter of OCEARCH. So yeah, we'll be moving the ship into there later this year. The city of Mayport, our dock is going to be completed in the next several months that they built, and we're have a crew house there, and something we're hoping to turn into a visitor center. So that is the long-term future of OCEARCH, is in Jacksonville, right in the heart of the winter habitat of white sharks in this part of the world. And then we'll be exploring around the world from there, and then working locally. So someone asked about Jacksonville. So yeah, Jacksonville is going to be the world headquarters of OCEARCH as we build that facility out in Mayport.
Yeah, Amber asked, actually, will we be able to track the ship? Yes. So as soon as our captains leave the dock, we have Captain Brett McBride leading the charge along with our Captain Dave there. We will turn the tracker on the ship so you guys can see, and the ship will actually leave days before the expedition starts to get into place. So absolutely, yes, you'll be able to track the ship along with new sharks, of course, that we tag. We'll keep you guys definitely updated. If you have downloaded the app, we are attempting to send new push notifications to you guys when we launch the expedition, or if there's a new shark. So definitely make sure you turn those on so you can get those messages. Yeah, I think if we didn't get to your question, if anybody else has anything to add, otherwise, if we didn't get to your question, we will definitely type on there and try to answer everything we can for you guys. Otherwise, definitely save the date, guys. We're kicking off literally next week. We couldn't do this without you and all of our partners. Definitely, you guys make a difference from your home, whether or not you're supporting us through donations, or you're buying stuff in the shop, or you're just, you know, spreading the message about sharks in our oceans and facts over fear. That helps our cause. So thank you guys so much for tuning in, and we're excited. We're going to be out on the water. It's our favorite thing to do.
Mr. X, we're trying to bring the ship over to solve the puzzle of the Mediterranean white shark next, starting late next year. We're just trying to get the funding together to be able to move the ship over there, and that's been challenging.
Thank you guys so much. Take care.
Thank you, guys.